Oh, come on, man. You can do better than that. Smack your goddamn daddy.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of There's a Lesson Here Somewhere, where we dive into TV shows and films that are published on Tubi. We'll explore the good, the bad, and find all the lessons in between. I'm your host, Manji, and for today's episode, we're going to be diving into Irv Gotti's series, Tales. Now, if you missed the previous episode, I do think you should go ahead and check it out. We covered the movie Turn Me On, and we explored life with no emotions. But let's go ahead and dive into Tales. So, if you were unfamiliar with Tales like I was, it's basically an anthology series created by Irv Gotti, rest in peace. And basically, each episode is low key a short film inspired by a hip hop song. So, for the first episode, it is inspired by Jay Z's 99 Problems. So the first episode, it starts on a school campus, and we see a lot of students protesting. You can tell that this is definitely during like the BLM, the height of the BLM protests and marches. So basically, the government in this particular episode announced that if you are affiliated with BLM, then you will be labeled a domestic terrorist. And so there's two students in particular who started like a rally in support of BLM and basically fighting for their people. And so, because of this, they are now labeled domestic terrorists. So, we see the police coming on campus, literally looking for these two people. They go to like the meeting area of the group, in which they already kind of got a heads up. So, they got those two main people out of there whose name is Jermaine, that's the woman, and Miles, who's the man. They got out of there before the police could get to them, thank God. So, they are getting word from other people in their collective that at this point the police can do anything because they have the government have no authority to override what's going on right now, and basically it's going to take a little bit more time for them to step in. So basically they have to go into hiding. So whoever they're in communication with told them that it's time for them to go underground or hiding, and they gave them an address of this guy named Blue's house. So after Googling it and going towards Blue's house, they realized that they are in the hood. And Jermaine had to remind Miles to like, don't be scared of your own people. Like, act like you know where you came from. So they finally made it to Blue's crib, in which they definitely had a little bit of trouble trying to get a hold of him, but eventually he came out once they realized who sent them. And he came out looking very Muslim. Like, what, you Muslim or something? Shout out to the wood. So Blues quickly take them inside because, again, the police are on search for them because they are considered domestic terrorists at this point. While they are inside Blue's home, they are looking at the news and seeing what basically the world is saying about them. And this is where they learned that they are being labeled as terrorists. And Miles, his mom, is calling him. And immediately Blue was like, don't answer that phone. And Jermaine was like, yeah, they could trace it. And he was like, even worse. And then we see like a clip of basically Miles' mother at home with the police. So the police is basically forcing her to call him so they can figure out where he is. So thankfully, he listened to Blue and he didn't answer the phone. Now, as mentioned in this episode, they aren't the first, or probably won't, I'm pretty sure won't be the last Black people to try to take a stand against what is happening to us here in America. So, Blue, he is coming at them with a lot of questions, and also with them being very young, because it's typically the young ones who have that energy and determination to fight to make change. So he's kind of challenging them with his questions, and it got to the point where both Jermaine and Miles became super frustrated. So they're like, "We about to go." And Blue, he's like, "All right, just make sure you don't ever come back here once you leave this home." And once they realize, like, they actually do need his help, they decided to stay. Blue also informs them that everything they need will be in the back room that they will be in, and to not go outside because they are literally wanted people right now. So they listen to him, they go to the back room and they stay there. And now, while we're in the back room with both Jermaine and Miles, we see Jermaine very conflicted. Like, she's kind of reflecting or thinking about what her mother may think about what they are saying about her on the news. And she was just saying how her mother just fought so hard for her to not, be arrested and just be a good citizen, only for her to be labeled as a terrorist as of now. So Miles have to kind of remind her that what she's doing is a big deal, and she is standing up for something, and that this what she's doing is absolutely necessary. So she's kind of trying to be okay with what is going on. And also, like, besides calling them terrorists, the news take it a little bit further and literally just start sharing lies with the country about both Jermaine and Miles. So that kind of ignited Jermaine's anxiety about like what her mother and family will think because they just literally just made some shit up about these two students. And now, after Jermaine is freaking out a little bit, she asks Miles for some space because she just needs to process like what the fuck is going on and probably what she should do next. And so Miles is kind of overwhelmed. This is just like a lot happening for these two right now. So he's like, I'm going to go outside and get some air, completely forgetting what Blue told him. And of course, Blue stopped him and he's like, don't do that. And he kind of reminded them that what they're doing again is bigger than them. And if they're going to do it, they need to lock the fuck in. So that's basically what Blue message was. So like, if you're going to do it, you need to fucking do it. Their next assignment, I guess, from Blue is to go meet with a courier. And so they meet with this woman in a park. And, they try to be a little bit incognito, in which they are informed to basically hide in plain sight. And they got very like vague information from the courier, some shit that they just have to figure out. And so they took the advice and was like hiding in plain sight and kind of was just walking around. Before the courier left, she also reminded both of them that freedom does not come free. So, of course, these two students are overwhelmed. Like, now Jermaine is thinking about going to jail, and she's like, yo, if I go to jail, that means I'm going to be without Miles, and there's no way I can do this by myself. And like, just shout out to people who like stand up for change on behalf of the people who don't for whatever reason. Like, I can only imagine the type of mental torture that you have to experience to stay locked in for the change, despite like the lack of support you'll probably get from people. Like, yeah, you'll definitely get support for the people that you're fighting the change for. However, there is abundance of lack of support because a lot of people don't want to mess up the comfort and convenience in their life that they currently have. So this movie reminded me of that. Sorry, not movie, but this first episode reminded me of that. It also kind of reminded me of Queen and Slim a little bit. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Queen and Slim was inspired by this or vice versa. But eventually, again, they started just walking around the city and a police officer spotted them. So, of course, they took off running. And as they're running, they spotted a salon. So they go in and ask for help. It was a black salon, thankfully, because if it was anybody else, they would have tied them up and had the police wait for and had them ready for when the police showed up. But at first, the salon owner wasn't like all in to help because she thought they were just like legit criminals. And then a customer in there, reminded her like, "Hey, these are the students who's standing up for our rights." So once she realized that, she of course looked out after them. And this is my favorite part in like shows or films like this when it comes to like a black uprising. I love when they put this little piece in there with us helping each other because we need to see it a lot more. But basically, the owner of this salon, she went out to get the police attention and basically just led them in the wrong direction while both Jermaine and Miles were hiding in plain sight, essentially under the heater in the salon.
Thank you, ma'am. You've been very helpful.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you. Least I can do. Y'all do such a fine job and all. Get your civil rights asses up.
This was also a great visualization of what community looks like. Like, whether you know that person or not, this is community helping out someone else who's doing the work for on behalf of you and who's fighting the good fight. The least you can do is help out and look out for them while they're doing what they need to do for you. So someone, a whistleblower we'll call them, sent them a video, and it's of the mayor, I believe, of this city in this episode, in which he's just being extremely racist. He's talking about his fellow employees as well. And so now they feel like, they actually have a way out of this because they have this proof that this guy is racist. So they can probably, again, use this to get out of this situation. And so the whistleblower ends up meeting with them in private, and he tells them that he has more emails for them. And basically, we could take this dude down because he's tired of playing the game. He initially thought he could kind of join the force and change it from the inside out. But he realized that that's a lost cause. So he kind of want to put a stop to it now. And he told them to come back the following day around the same time in the same spot. And he's going to give them some more emails and just more evidence that will put the mayor and everyone else running this town under. He also informed both of them of an event that was coming up and basically told them that they could work as waiters and get more evidence against the government. And so they did. They set up cameras, they dressed as waiters, and they live streamed the entire thing on the internet. But eventually, the people who are on stage got word that this is being streamed and they went right after Jermaine and Miles. However, they were not alone. We got another visual representation of what community looks like. And while they were being attacked by these two security guards, all the cooks and the help, who just so happens to be of the same culture as Jermaine and Miles, stepped in and put the security guards in a headlock, and they got him out of there. So they handled the security guards and gave Jermaine and Miles time to get up out of there. We actually got a cute little montage of them in love. So we know that, this lady ain't none of his problems. Shout out Jay-Z. But, they had to kind of put that emphasis in there because of Jay-Z's song, because again, these are all inspired by hip hop lyrics. So we get the little montage of their love relationship, and then once they make it back to the park to meet the whistleblower, they see him there. So he's no longer alive, and now they're freaking out. And then they go back to the room, and then that's where they see Blue and the courier. Now, Jermaine and Miles, they were like initially freaking out, but Blue and the courier were kind of excited. The whistleblower managed to send all the evidence and emails to all the news stations to blow everything, to basically expose the government. So, yeah, he ended up being assassinated. However, he stood 10 toes down for a great cause, and he died for something rather than just dying for anything. And I think that was one of the quotes in here as well. So, basically, this ending kind of signifies that both Jermaine and Miles will essentially, make it out of this being labeled as a domestic terrorist, and they'll have another chance to fight the good fight. And then we see the mayor actually getting arrested. So with the whistleblower and with everyone contributed to this cause actually led to something being done. So I mean, it didn't change any laws or anything, but however, it got the person who's responsible in this moment for a lot of the torture that's going on in the city or country or whatever. We got them to a point where they can be reprimanded for the things that they've been doing since they, turned in all this evidence. So that is basically the end of this first episode. So it kind of gives us a little bit of hope when it comes to fighting for true freedom, whether you're Black or any other race here in America, fighting for change. And that'll go ahead and lead me into the lesson for this first episode. And that is, if you are so passionate about wanting to change the world, whether you are doing it for Black lives, whether you're doing it for homelessness, whether you're doing it to make sure every child has food and is fed and is able to live and function because they have fresh water, um, then it's going to cost you, unfortunately. I say all that to say, if you are, again, so passionate about the change that you want to make in the world, it's almost a guarantee that you are going to have to decide to go through similar struggles that Jermaine and Miles experience in this series. I mean, granted, they were running from the law or whatever, but eventually, if you look at history, no matter what type of change that you want to do, whether it's environmental, or social, or just wanting demanding respect and regular treatment despite the color of your skin, that means that things will happen. And like when it comes to like the whistleblower, like lives will be lost. And I know I'm saying it as if like I have no consideration for life, but that's just what it is. We can look at history, the way humans operate. There's no way to make change without some force going against you, which will eventually probably lead to you losing a life, your own, someone you adore, your fucking mind. There's so many things that is at risk when you dedicate your life to demanding change from the world. So if you decide to do that, just keep that in mind because it's low key inevitable. However, you may not get the recognition, while you're alive. Look at history. Look at all the people we look up to who dedicated their lives to change. Hell, we got people still locked up right now because they dedicated their lives to change. And most of us have forgotten about them, and they literally dedicated their lives in order to make ours better. And unfortunately, that's the fucking reality. So you have to decide to commit to make this change happen because you truly are just passionate about it. So you have to commit to it despite what others may do, whether it's like supporting you or going against you. You just have to stay 10 toes down, in the words of Nipsey, because that's just a fucked up mindset a lot of human beings are just running around this ghetto ass planet with. So I say all that to say, shout out to everyone who are passionate about change, again, whether that's for Black lives or whatever thing or cause that you are passionate about. It's people like you who are igniting the change that has been happening in the world. It's people like you who made it capable, like who made society is what it is today. Like, yes, we have a long way to go for us to improve. However, there's been a tremendous amount of change that happened over the past 100, 200, 300 years. So I just want to say shout out to you. Even though you may not get the recognition or appreciation, I just want to take this time to shout you out and say I love and appreciate you for caring so much. Because if you ain't gonna do it, who will? So we're gonna wrap up that first episode and get into the second one. So for episode 2, Irv Gotti decided to cover Meek Mill's Cold Hearted. And this song, I'm not even gonna lie and act like I listened to the song after watching it. I still didn't listen to it, but I heard a little something, because I'm assuming they included it in this episode because they included all the other songs. So I heard a piece of it because they included it. But after watching the second episode, it's pretty clear what the fuck the song is about. So the second episode starts with who we eventually learn name is Tank. He is there trying to comfort his friend, his best friend apparently, whose name is Gutta. He was just shot. So once the police get involved, we learn that Gutta is actually a celebrity. He is a popular rapper, and we learned who Tank is in relation to him, who was his best friend. So they started with Tank to question him to figure out what the fuck happened to Gutta. And Tank, he tells the police that he was basically Gutta's one true friend. He was actually the person who taught him how to rap. So now we go back into the past and we see both Gutta and Tank going over their bars and everything. So it's clear that Tank is the mastermind in terms of the writing for Gutta. He also gave him some pointers on how to better his delivery so he can present himself as more of a rap star. In the next scene, we see both of them on stage. So now we learn that this is a duo, and it's not just Gutta who's the star and Tank who's just helping him, but they actually were a group. And so after they perform, they did wonderful. Everybody's impressed with Gutta's new delivery, so much so that this woman walks up. Tank have been like trying to pursue her for a while, and she's affiliated with this dude Lewis, who has basically a record label. So after that performance, she's intrigued, and he is as well. So she lets them know that they can probably work something out so they can perform more or potentially see Lewis and probably get like some sort of deal out of the mix. So this is obviously taking place in LA because of the attire and the low key accents that they were trying to put on. One of the dudes had like a Compton beanie. So Lewis, he is a blood member and he's affiliated with a gang. And so since that kind of put a target on both Tank and Gutta's back, according to Tank. Okay, I lied. Leslie is the girl's name, the manager. And so she informs both Gutta and Tank that Lewis is interested in signing them. However, he's only interested in signing Gutta and Tank. They can probably, work out the contract and put him in as a writer, but it's not a guarantee because they only care about signing Gutta. Tank then tells the police that it has to be the rival gang who basically did this to Gutta because they also put out a diss song against them. And although they did put out a diss song, the police wasn't convinced that that was enough for them to actually harm Gutta. And the same goons from earlier who was pressed that Gutta was affiliated with Lewis, they are on the opposing gang. So that's why they are so upset. And I don't remember their names, but the person who was playing the first goon, it's Mano. So we're going to just call him by his artist, his real life artist name. So Mano and his goons basically came up and pressed Tank. So this is Tank version of what happened in the bar this night. And so they came off as true bullies. Like the dude with the Compton beanie, like literally spat in Tank's drink and told him to fucking drink it. And of course he didn't. And so he threw the drink and they ended up squabbling. So then Gutta comes out and help. So Tank is insinuating that because of this little scuffle that happened in the bar, that is what triggered basically Gutta being harmed afterwards. Because after this little fight that he just shared with the police, is shortly after Gutta was hurt. Of course, the police asked Tank if he was able to see the shooter, and he tells them no. Even in the clip back that we see, we also, the audience, couldn't see the shooter, but he was able to describe the car to them. The next person the police pull in is Mano, who is like the head guy of the rival clique of Lewis. So that's when we learn that Gutta actually officially passed away. So at first he was just hurt in the hospital, and now he knows. So initially he was against telling the police anything, like he was refusing to speak on anything. But once he learned what happened to Gutta, he kind of opened up a little bit, because now he's being blamed for murder, and he is saying that he had nothing to do with it. He actually go and give us the backstory of him and Gutta, in which they used to be friends. They actually used to make music together, but that was until Gutta started entertaining Lewis, because again, Mano is a part of the rival gang, and whether they do music or not, he's not allowed to work with or do anything with the rival gang. Mano also continues to share with the police how like he had no intentions of harming Gutta, although a lot of his gang mates wanted to put hands and do something to Gutta. He told them that he's going to get back at Gutta by basically rapping against him, so they don't have anything to worry about, because he's going to embarrass him because he don't write his own bars, that whole little hip hop politics. And so he had no intention on taking it further to the point where Gutta loses his life. So after speaking with Mano, the cops are like, this got to be an inside job. So the next person they bring in is Leslie, who is the lady manager. And she's like kind of freaking out. She knows how powerful Lewis is. So she thinks that Lewis is the culprit behind killing Gutta, who is actually her baby daddy as well. So although Tank was the first one who was interested in her, she ended up getting with Gutta, and they ended up procreating and having a baby. So now we fast forwarding to now, where he's been shot and now he's no longer living in the series, and now she's like a widow essentially. So she's scared for her and her child and didn't want to expose too much, but she also wants to put her boyfriend's baby daddy killer behind bars. So she was gonna leave, but she eventually started working with them and telling them, the police, everything that she knows. And now she's kind of blaming herself as well, because she is the one who initially introduced Gutta to Lewis. And there was a point where things were going well, but eventually both Leslie and Gutta realized that Lewis have been playing them and been paying them way less than what they actually earned. So they went up into the Lewis's office and turned up, in which Gutta threatened to leave the record label, and it was just a whole big old fiasco. And now we get back to the night where Gutta is shot, and everyone is basically giving their version of what happened that night. And none of them gave close to the same story. The only thing that was in common was that fists were thrown. So at first, Tank was saying how the gang members came and was basically bullying him. He defended himself. Now Leslie is here, and she is saying how like Tank and her were like talking, and then the gang members came and they started talking shit about Leslie, because Leslie was fucking around with Mano too. She was low key, doing her thing, going around. But because of that, Mano was kind of like, oh, like you trying to holla at my seconds or something like that. And she's saying that that is what sparked the fight. So basically, Tank was trying to defend her, and eventually Gutta came out trying to have both his lady and his best friends back. So that is what ignited the fight, according to Leslie. And she completely believes that Gutta was set up. So now they got Lewis up in the police station for questioning. And off top, like, Lewis was straight up. He was like, from jump, Tank was dead weight. Like, from the beginning of wanting to sign Gutta, he kept telling him how he needs to get rid of Tank. And now we kind of get like a different side of Tank. So at first, between Tank's own mouth as well as Leslie, he's been painted as just like a supportive friend. However, when Lewis got up there, his experience with Tank was completely different. So he viewed Tank as basically a parasite or a leech for Gutta. So Gutta, when he was, like this with Tank, he would be blowing all his money on Tank and his other friends. They be doing drugs, over drinking. So now Gutta isn't even fulfilling his duties as an artist. He's missing out on recording studio time. And when Lewis went to like ask him about it, he's acting like, it's no big deal, while Tank is behind him supporting it. Lewis seeing Tank as something that's basically going to be terrible for Gutta in the long run. So he was trying to get him out of there quickly, and he kind of starting to feel bad too because now he's starting to feel like Tank probably has something to do with it because he literally was ruining Gutta, according to Lewis. So Lewis tried to talk to Gutta one on one, but of course Tank is there. Apparently, Tank is the reason why he's there because he gave him a ride. Because apparently, Gutta can't figure out how to get anywhere around town without his buddy Tank. So of course, Lewis is like annoyed essentially because these are all grown adults that we're talking about here, and he basically tells him Gutta in front of Tank that he needs to get rid of him. And at this point, Gutta is all fucked up mentally because he's been getting threatening text messages. So now he's just all about his mind is fucked up because he's focused on his safety. So it's safe to assume that he's actually in survival mode. So he went from being like a more friendly, down to earth type of guy who would stop Tank if he would try to turn up. And he would always remind everyone how success is actually the best revenge, to now where he's sitting across from Lewis and he's like, revenge is the best revenge. And then we see Tank kind of looking at him, and you can see Tank is picking up everything that Gutta is putting down. So Gutta even suggested to Lewis how they could hire someone to take out the rival game because he is so certain that they are the ones who are basically harassing him.
You used to say success is the best revenge. Hmm? Nah. Revenge is the best revenge.
But the police still, low key wasn't convinced because now they like, so, all right, so now you got him up out of here so you can continue to get paid. So now Lewis had to remind them, I'm a businessman. And actually, Gutta is worth a lot more alive than he is dead because he was at the start of his career. So why would he kill a business, like something that could basically make him someone or something that could make him about 300 million? So after that, the police was kind of like, maybe he is right. Like maybe we should look a little bit more into Tank. So now we see like the police, they are getting frustrated and overwhelmed. And it's kind of safe to assume that they are kind of giving up on this case. Like one of the detectives was like, all these rappers' case go unsolved. Like we never figure it out. So this is just going to be another one. Let's go to lunch. And, Raw Digga and him, they go to lunch. And then we go back to Tank, in which Tank, he's walking in the alley with these large ass duffel bags. I'm assuming it's like in real time now, for the second episode, and he's meeting up with this guy. And so the guy asked him, like, did you think your friend ever knew, like, what was going on? And then we see Tank kind of, reflecting back, and we go back to where the beginning of this episode where Gutta was shot, and he's there and he's crying out for his friend and help. And then he like whispers to him, and he's like, you know what, Gutta, you was right.
He was right. Sometimes revenge is the best revenge. Help! Somebody help! My bro is dying! Help!
And the way Tank fucking smiled, oh, nah, no bueno. So now he's here with the hitman. I'm assuming to pay him the rest of the amount that he owed him. And the hitman, asked him, like, what's all the shit you carrying right now? And Tank was like, oh, like, I went and I had to clear out the safe. Got about like a half a mil on me because I got the rest of Gutta shit. Why would you say that to a hitman? One. Two, yeah, like I don't know. He was so comfortable saying that. I don't even know why he would even bring that with him to the meeting. But the hitman was like, huh, interesting. So now they finish up their business. Tank turns around to go about his way. And before he make it to the end of the fucking alley, the hitman turns around and shoots him a couple of times. And of course, take another half a million because why not? It's free money right here at this point. And then also the fact that Tank was such a disturbing individual to set up his best friend. And before he took his shit, he was just like, I fucking hate a hater. I can't stand a hater or some shit like that. So he felt like, it was okay to take this dude's money and stuff because he a hater anyway. And that is the end of the second episode. And for the lesson of episode 2, I feel like it's safe to say, like, don't be a fucking hater. I can only imagine how much, like, how many lives have been lost due to just like envy. Because I don't think it's just a hater, it goes beyond that. I feel like once you reach being envious of someone, that can turn those feelings into actions that can lead to something that was been going on with Tank. So for this episode in particular, the lesson is always, it's another lesson is that like the people's closest to you may not always be for you. Like, I feel like we hear this a lot in rap songs about how, like, the person you call your bro might be the first one to throw you under the bus or even kill you because they are a hater, and it turns to envy because of situations like this with Gutta and Tank, where they decided to become a rap duo to get this money together and to work together to achieve their goals. However, the industry separated them because they only seen Gutta as the star and they just seen Tank as just the fat sidekick. However, I feel like if they were as tight as they were, like Gutta could have definitely been a little bit of a better friend. Like he stood up for him where he could. However, he should have fought a little bit more for at least him, for for Tank to get paid for the writing because he was responsible for writing his bars. So Tank is owed a little bit of credit when it comes to the development of Gutta as an artist. However, that doesn't mean he's entitled to everything. So my personal opinion is that Gutta could have stood up a little bit more for him, even if that meant not getting this deal with Lewis and potentially getting a better deal with someone else. I feel like they kind of jumped the gun and just took this first offer, regardless of what it was doing to his best friend, who was partially responsible for the success that he is at. I'm not saying this to say that I condone Tank for doing what he did because nothing he did, there's nothing to condone killing your friend unless like your friend is trying to kill you. That's like the only excuse. Tank could have definitely dealt with his envious feelings on his own because not only did his best friend take this his job from him essentially, but he also took the woman that he wanted. He basically, to Tank, I'm assuming, Gutta hijacked his entire life and he felt like he treated him like shit. He even told the hitman that, and he probably felt like that because he didn't stand up for him. So the lesson here is Lewis actually said it, and that's don't trust a motherfucking body. Don't trust a motherfucking soul but yourself. Don't trust nobody else but yourself. Trust your gut. I know this is a series, but if this was a real life situation, I'm pretty sure Gutta had many warnings in forms of gut feelings or just regular life situations where he was being warned as to Tank's true feelings. So you got to trust yourself enough to know that yourself isn't going to lead you in the wrong direction, and it's going to always show you who is there for you. Also, take care of the people who are taking care of you because that could lead to more situations like this. If you're always pouring into someone and you never think to pour back into that person, that could definitely lead, almost a guarantee going to lead to that person feeling some sort of resentment for you, and in this case envy, which led to him dying. Yeah, don't be envious of your friends. Make sure you look out for your friends, but there are certain situations where you can go above and beyond for your friends. Hell, pay their bills and their family bills for years and years to come, but they still is envious of you, probably because they feel like they can't do the work that you're doing, and but they feel like they still deserve the success that you have. In that case, you just got to trust yourself, maybe heed the warnings of all these fucking people behind you. Maybe, take what Lewis is saying with a grain of salt. Take what the businessman is saying to you about business and the person who you wouldn't mind trading places with because he was a very successful man. So if he would have probably heed those warnings that he was, given from actual people and probably his own gut, again, I know this is a big series, but then he could have avoided that situation. I mean, you know, Tank could have still probably been upset if he ended the friendship and probably still could have came after him that way. However, he would have known exactly what he was dealing with. And I wouldn't be surprised if Tank was actually behind those threatening text messages as well. Let's go ahead and get into the third episode. So episode 3 is inspired by Fetty Wap's Trap Queen, which I think is funny because like this phone just gained popularity again in the past like year or two. But this is when the song was hot. So this episode is also 40 minutes and it starts in a strip club. We meet Reg and his wife who are the owners of this strip club. Reg is played by fine ass Lance Gross. Y'all met him back in New Orleans about a decade ago, and he is just as beautiful as he is on the screen. Shout out to Lance Gross. So Reg, played by Lance Gross, is in the strip club, and we learn that they are already selling weed in this strip club. However, he's trying to move that cocaina, so he's having like a meeting with another seller who works for this big distributor guy, Slim. So he's working with them and they are kind of telling him like, hey, like Slim don't play about his money. Like, you sure you want to get into this? And he's like, I don't play either. And I want to make a lot more money. So he's definitely down to work with Slim. So once Reggie makes it back home, we see that wifey is already there and she's about her business. She's asking for receipts and everything because apparently the previous owner of this club is in jail for like tax fraud or whatever. So Crystal, his girl's name, she wants to make sure they, cover all their P's and Q's so they don't end up in the same predicament. And she's even suggesting to Reg to sell the club because she's just like, she just want to be at peace in life and ain't trying to do all this other mumbo jumbo. So eventually, though, Reg ends up asking her to be his wife. So we also meet like the head stripper, I guess, and her name is Unique. And she's talking with Reg and she's like telling Reg, like, hey, like I know y'all about to get married, but make sure Crystal stay locked in. And he like, I got it, don't worry about it. But then he also tells her that they want to sell more than just weed now. They're interested in selling that cocaina. So he's telling her like the new procedure and just how it's gonna go down. He's also like reassuring her that they won't be responsible for, they won't have enough on them to get locked up for a long time. They will keep it right under the minimum so everybody will be okay and they can make as much money as they can. So the next night, like Reg was saying, how there's like some sort of private party happening at the club. So he's going to be out late. And of course, Crystal, all in love, she's like, okay, well, I'm going to wait for you on the couch. If I fall asleep, just put me back in the bed. Reg didn't make it back to the next morning, in which he had to hurry up and go in the room to hide that cocaina. And Crystal heard him, so she woke up and ended up meeting him in the bedroom. But by then, he already hid the goods. I forgot to mention that before Reg made it back home, we actually were visiting the drug dealers that he was speaking to at the beginning of the episode. And when they made it back to Slim, they realized that they were short 20K. So they were either missing the coke or missing the money. And we see the main guy who was talking to Reg, like as Slim was talking to them, he was putting two and two together and he realized that Reg may have stolen coke from them. It's almost a guarantee that Reg stolen coke from him. So now he's trying to figure out his get back. Now, fast forward, we see Crystal on the couch, and then now Reggie's coming back home trying to hide the cocaina, but then Crystal wakes up, and now they're back to pillow talking in the bed because they finally made it to bed. In which Reggie gets a call, learning that there's a flood in the dressing room back at the strip club, and he kind of sends Crystal off to do it, and she's annoyed, but she's gonna do it because apparently she's his ride or die. But she's frustrated because she's like, somebody else could be dealing with this. You could sell this club, like, and why do I have to do it? Like, this your shit. But eventually, she's gonna do what her boo wants, and so but she gotta talk her shit first. So she gets there, and then that's where she learns that Reggie was actually lying about the party from the night before because Unique was like, what party are you talking about? So now Crystal is locked in. She's about to figure out what the fuck is going on. So like in the next scene, we see, the active club and she is just looking around, just noticing everything that's going on. So that's when she put two and two together and realized a lot more than just marijuana is being sold in this establishment. So now Crystal is ready to go home and just to have a conversation with Reggie because what the fuck is really going on? Once she made it there, we see the two goons who Reggie was talking to. It's what's his name from Pew Valley, actually, Lil Murda. But Lil Murda and them is at the house because they're looking for Reggie as well and they're trying to figure out where that coke is or where that money is. So since Crystal walked in, of course, they press her and she don't know where he is. She's literally been looking for him as well. And like, they rough her up a little bit and, remind her that we are looking for your dude and we're going to come back until we find him. So now she's blowing up his phone and he is just not answering right now. Turns out Reggie was over there with Slim. So he comes up with 20K and now he's like entering business with Slim, but Slim's like, that's, you can tell that he's also thinking like, hey, that's crazy how they were missing 20K and here you coming with 20K. So he kind of just like casually asked him like, how'd you get this 20K so fast? And he like, like my people, they do this and that. He came up with some lie. So once he finished talking to Slim, that's when he seen all the missed calls and was able to call Crystal back. Now, Crystal is going off on Reggie, and rightfully so, because he put her in a situation where she could have lost her life. And the fact that he's been keeping it a secret put her at more risk, put her more at risk than anything else. Like Reggie thought he was protecting her by not giving her certain information. But no, it just put her more at risk because now she can't do her due diligence to protect herself. But now that everything is all out on the table, he wants to make sure that she can protect herself moving forward. So he's want to encourage her to get comfortable with using a firearm. And now after all this, who shot John? Crystal and both Reggie are looking for their new home, and they decided to go with a home that has a lot of secret storage space. I wonder why. So now Crystal, she is basically asking Reggie for the rundown. She like, let me know exactly how you move in this product, what's going on, step by step procedure for every fucking thing that's going on in this club. And she's learning it so she can know how she can progress this new business basically. And he does. He teaches her everything. He also gets her a gun because again, he's not letting up on her learning how to use this firearm. The head stripper in charge, she goes to Crystal because she wants to move a lot more weight. Basically, whatever cocaina they are selling is doing very well, and she wants to be responsible for a lot more than they are giving her. But of course, they initially are giving her the low amount because they don't want her to be arrested with a large amount on her, which will make it worse. But it got to a point where Crystal was like, let's just try something else out. And eventually, Crystal was like, you know what? Y'all could actually take it outside the club and sell it and just bring it back to me. But whatever goes on once y'all leave here, if y'all get caught with the shit and all that, you still will owe me the money and you got to handle whatever fuck shit you got going on with the police. That's your business. Just so y'all know. So Reggie finally gives Crystal some shooting lessons. So they go out into the middle of nowhere and they're shooting bottles. And my girl Crystal, she missed like the first one to two, but then after that, my good sis locked in and she was just like boom, boom, hitting that target which every time after that, after like the first two, she was hitting every target. And I just like,
Yeah, face it, Crystal. You got a gangster and you just waiting to come out.
she's a natural, and like part of me feels like that's me. Like once I learn how to use a gun and stuff, I feel like I'm just gonna be like Laura Croft on that ass, like just a natural. So after that, we are back at the club, and Crystal ain't letting up on the upgrades. She is trying to make this club look good because that's what, women do. We make shit look better. But Reggie quickly reminds her, like, ain't nobody looking at the decor up in this motherfucker. Actually, in a couple years, you can do whatever you want to this place because I would have got my use out of it. And at that point, I don't even care. And she was just like, all right, then shit, because she really tried to upgrade it. And I respect it. I see Crystal's vision. You know what I'm saying? Reggie was also very adamant about Crystal meeting Slim because Slim is adamant about meeting everyone who he is doing business with. So she wasn't really interested though, but he kept pressing it and pressing it. But later on this night, Lil Murda and them came back to the strip club for revenge on Reg for stealing from him. Thankfully, my girl Crystal is knowledgeable on how to use a gun. So when they came in there shooting, she was able to have Reggie's back. But unfortunately, Lil Murda was able to get to Lance before Crystal could protect him. But however, it was like, a fair deal because Crystal was able to take out Lil Murda's guy while Lil Murda ended up taking out Reg. So they was like, let's just say we're even. And then he ended up just leaving out of the club, Lil Murda. So of course, Crystal is devastated. Like he just came in there and ended the love, basically took the love of her life. So of course she's devastated. She didn't even get to marry him or whatever. So now she's in mourning mode, and we got Unique, the HSIC. She is like, reminding her that this is what Reggie will want it. He will want you to open up this bar, and also let her know that Slim is still interested in speaking with him because although the bar is closed now, sorry, the strip club is closed now, and although Reggie is not here, he knows that Crystal is fully capable of continuing on the business without Reggie. And so Crystal wasn't with it at first, but she was listening to Unique and she was like, you know what? Go ahead. Go ahead and set up that meeting with Slim. So now we are back at the strip club and we see Slim and we see Crystal. They finally meet for the first time. And Slim is doing his whole business talk. And he ended up saying Reggie's name. She's like, don't you dare say his fucking name. And so, he shut the fuck up after that. But she was like, "Oh, you think I forgave you?" Pow. So basically, Crystal ended up taking out Slim on behalf of Reggie. But Slim's people, of course, was pulling up after they heard the gunshot. But my girl Crystal stayed ready, and she had her shooter in the back. To have her back, of course, and he took care of it when they came up. And she said what she had to say to Slim, and I guess she continued on. The thing that was funny to me about this is how like Unique and Nell was making it seem like she was saving a community. Like you have to do it for Slim. Like, you have to keep selling drugs in the strip club because your husband died. Like, what? Anyways, that's the end of this episode, episode 3. And let's get into the lessons. I mean, the clear lesson here is like, don't be stealing from people, especially if you've been warned about how much they don't play when it comes to theft. And the first thing you do is steal from them, thinking you can get away with it and you can outsmart these people because they would have never been in this situation had Reggie not stolen from them. That's that. Now, I know this episode was inspired by Trap Queen. This was probably my least favorite out of these 4 episodes. And I get it. I know Trap Queen. I'm very familiar. You know, I'm a millennial. I was out young and turnt when this shit was out on the radio. However, it's cute to sing in a club, but it's not cute to live out in real life. Yes, in order to be a trap queen, you really have to essentially play yourself, make yourself super small for your partner who's the trap king, I'm assuming. And you have to kind of just blindly be a dumbass to all their decisions because you have to be the body to their Clyde, right? Not only did Reggie steal and started all this bullshit, but he also didn't even tell his trap queen, right? So he's lying. He's a liar. So he's lying to her, which then put her in a situation where she had to defend herself to the dude who eventually killed Reggie. So she could have been murdered there, and Reggie didn't even give her the chance to defend herself, to prepare for a situation that may occur because he thought he was too savvy to get caught. Like, he thought these people wasn't going to realize that they were out of 20K. Like, what was the thinking process behind just taking this drugs and money from these people? Did he just think that they were just going to be dumb and just never think to find the money or figure out what the fuck happened to it? Like, so now as a trap queen, you have to be dumb because you have to do whatever your king says. And even like when she was suggesting stuff, like he like, you can do that after I'm done doing my shit. You know? So that trap queen song, it's so fun to sing. Shout out Fetty Wap. However, the lesson there is like being a trap queen ain't for everybody. Obviously, Crystal was about this life. And I am not like Crystal. So, the world is yours. It's your life. You can obviously do whatever the fuck you want with it. If you don't want to have to play yourself small and never do the things you want to do in your life, or even have the ideas you have for your illegal business to be taken seriously, then maybe being a trap queen is for you. And if you decide to go that route, you need to get a queen in with them guns and stuff and make sure you can have your trap kings back. I don't know. Hopefully I got that lesson there. But I'm gonna stop on episode 3 right there. Let's go ahead and get into 4. So for episode 4, the inspiration behind it was the Roots You Got Me. And it was the Erykah Badu version. So already I'm kind of expecting some cute little love song. But before I even get into this, I will say it wasn't until the second watch where it clicked, because I was like, I need to like really just go over these lyrics because I don't understand the correlation between this episode and that song. But then I got it, and I'm gonna share it at the end because maybe it's part of the lesson. I don't know, but I'm share it at the end. So this one, we have a dancer. I'm just thankful it ain't no fucking guns and drugs in this fourth one, because like, god damn it. And the dancer name is Angie. I love when I watch things and the main character name is Angie, because I'm just like, ah, yes, like shout out to Is God Is. If y'all haven't seen it, y'all should. But okay, so this fourth episode, we see Angie. She's like a professional dancer, and she's like practicing and stuff like that. And we learn when Angie is talking to her friend that she invited a couple investors for her upcoming show. And she told her that if these investors don't want to invest in her, then they have a high chance of losing their dance studio. And her friend is like, yes, girl, you're right, but you are a little bit too anxious, girl. You at a 10. I'm gonna need you to bring it down to about maybe let's say 4. And I say all that to say you need to go get some dick. So she basically tell her she needs to go out with a man. Actually, I'm gonna set you up with a man. I'm gonna do it for you. So basically the friend suggests that Angie goes out and meet some men, and that she will see if her dude has a friend for her. So Angie, she's also, I'm going to be saying Angie a lot, but Angie, she is going to be shooting for a cover of a magazine. And so we meet Marcus, who is the photographer for this magazine. And their first interaction was not solid at all. Like, it was very like you can tell that she was like a little taken aback by just his responses, but also very intriguing because she probably never been spoken to like that. Like, that was kind of the energy Angie was giving when she met Marcus. So after the shoot or whatever, they ended up reconnecting again because now she has to pay Marcus. And instead of accepting pay, Marcus is like, how about I take you on a date? So he's like offering her things and she's like, nah, nah. And eventually he was like, I know you be walking. I see you do that. Like, how about we just go on a walk for a date? So then Angie was like, all right, I can do that. And while they are on this walk, Marcus is low key showing out because he's proving just how knowledgeable he is on Angie already. And she is just like, how the fuck do you know all this about me, creep? But he's just like, basically he did a research because she's probably not like a popular dancer, but she's popular enough where people got her information on the internet. And so she also learned that Marcus already turned in the photo for the cover of the magazine. And now she's getting a little bit upset because she's like, why didn't you consult me before turning in the photo so I can give my input on which photo that I think would be best for the magazine? And he was just like, let me make it up to you. I'll make it up to you. So eventually, Marcus convinced Angie to let him come over again, and he come bearing gifts. He have like some photos or something for her to frame and put up. And this guy is a smooth guy. Like you can tell he's a whore just by how he just knows all the right things to say. Like he knows exactly how to get these women wrapped around his finger, and Angie was his next subject. So while Marcus is just mesmerizing Angie with his words, he's also showing her how to use his professional camera as well. And eventually, she ends up giving in and giving him the draws because he is just so smooth. I guess he deserved it at this point, right? But during this time, he's also just showing her new things like, this is their first time being intimate, and he like ties her up and stuff. So she's just like really into like all these new experiences with Marcus. The next morning, when Angie woke up, Marcus, of course, was not there. And now she was late to class, dance rehearsal. So yeah, she's having fun with Marcus, but this is like a pretty slow start to her neglecting her own needs in life for her penis. And while she's at work and rehearsal or everything, all she is thinking about is this man. So my good sis Angie is for certain stigmatized, and that's very unfortunate to see. So now we fast forward to Angie and her friend. They are on like a double date, like her friend said she would set up for her. And this guy is very handsome. He's obviously into her, but as soon as Marcus hit her up, she like, I gotta go. Something came up. Something came up. So, she left the party. And of course, her friend is like, girl, what the fuck is going on? Like, I just set this up for you. Like, why are you leaving? And she's just like, I just gotta go. And her friend is also upset because she didn't put any effort into even learning about this car. She didn't even give him a try, but she's also like, all right, girl. All right, go do you. Angie, she makes it home. So he didn't even take her out or nothing. He just told her to go home, I guess, because she went back to her crib and he was waiting out front for her. So in this next scene, he had her put on a blindfold in which he kind of give her a not kind of he definitely gives her a surprise tattoo. So while that blindfold is on, he tats her up on her inner thigh, and it's a cute little forever type symbol with like a little dove. And once she took off the blindfold, thankfully she liked the tattoo because he just did something very permanent to her body without having any kind of conversation. I would have been upset. And so she actually liked the random tat that this man she just met a couple of days just put on her inner thigh. And in the next scene, they are, being cute, cuddling in the tub. I think he was like greasing her scalp in the tub or something. And she was just, casually sharing with him how she didn't just volunteer this information. He actually asked her, like, yo, what were you doing actually yesterday before you came over and got digged down by me? And she was like, oh, like, I was hanging with my homegirl. Like, she had this dude for me, but like, I wasn't feeling him. He probably thought I was cute, but like, I wasn't feeling it. And he got upset. He got up out that tub and he was like,
Look, I don't have time for these fucking games, Angie. You either with me or you're not.
Okay. I'm with you.
Angie is thinking, like, I guess I am with you. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. So because he went off, they still never had a conversation or anything. Just based off his anger, she assumed that they are in a relationship. So finally, Angie tells her friend about Marcus. Her friend name is Trina, by the way. And Trina was just like, girl, you are sprung. That's where you went the other day. I see what's going on. She also like reminded Angie, like, you actually don't have to choose right now. Like, you could date both these niggas. But, she's taking into consideration how Marcus reacted to her just hanging out with Trina. So, and also she's just not that type of gal. But I'm with Trina on that one. I mean, I'm not saying, I mean, do whatever the fuck you want to show body in your life, but there's no harm in getting to know more than one person at a time. If you choose to fuck them all, that's your prerogative, but that's definitely not a requirement. And I feel like Angie should have definitely entertained both those guys. Even I'm not even gonna go. The next scene we see Marcus hitting her up again, and it's safe to assume that he told her to come out front because she went out front and she was looking for him, and he like grabbed her to the side of the building, and they basically ended up doing it outside, which I support. And it was funny though because like every time Angie leaves the house, it's like this woman that she always sees in passing walking her dog, and that same woman was outside walking her dog while she was getting piped down on the side of her apartment building, and she was just like a little startled. So now they are pillow talking again, and you can see that Angie is very conflicted with whatever the fuck they got going on, and she just feels that whatever it is unhealthy and is preventing her from basically thriving in her own life. And he's just like, why the fuck are you complaining? Like, are you not having fun? Like, just very inconsiderate of her feelings. And then she also mentions Trina name again, and he kind of goes off. And he's just like, why does Trina have all this control over your life when, he's low key projecting in this moment? So while Marcus is like in the bathroom or something, Angie is trying to be cute and take a photo on his camera. And then, of course, she goes to view the photo that she just took, and she continues to, scroll and scroll and scroll. And she sees so many women on this memory card. So she ends up taking the memory card so she can go show Trina what the fuck she is seeing. And now she's in the next scene, she's in the car with Trina showing her. And she said there's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women. So now she's freaking out 'cause she's like, what the fuck is this? Like, you branded me, like, you did all of this, and like, you getting mad because I went out with someone else and you have like a million other girls in your camera who you probably branded as well. And then, of course, Trina is like supporting her with leaving him alone because what the fuck is this? And they didn't give us a time frame, but based on just what watching this episode, like all this seemed like it took place in like less than a week. So now, while she's with Trina, she gets a message from Marcus telling her that it's imperative that they meet up right away. And so basically, he knows that she has his memory card and he wants it back. So they meet up, and thankfully, well, I don't know if it's thankfully or not, but Angie has her backup friend Trina there to support her while she goes to confront Marcus. And she's basically asking him, like, what the fuck is going on? And he's just like, you've had multiple orgasms, right? Like, why are you dripping? Like, why are you dripping? Like, he felt that just simply because he was able to do that for Angie, that would suffice, that she don't need to deal with anything else, anyone else, don't get any type of any emotional love from anyone else. All you need is this dick and you're gonna be okay. Angie is just like super conflicted, like, is that all this is? Is it just sex? And he like, man, give me my shit and go. That triggered her just as much as it triggered me, and it triggered Trina too, because they just started attacking him low key. They low key like jumped him, and while they're trying to beat him up, he ends up falling and he hits his head, and like there's blood spilling. Now it's not funny, but like it was just like this scene where we see Trina while he's like on the floor and like Angie's over him, she's just like trying to scrub her fingerprints off like the crutches and stuff. And that part just had me in tears because she was not playing. She like, y'all not about to find my fingerprints up in this motherfucker. So we don't know for sure if Marcus is deceased, but we know that he is definitely hurt. And so, of course, once they got out of there, Trina ended up taking Angie back home. And before she dropped Angie off, she reminded her, like, hey, I got you. And then so Angie goes in the house, and then the next day the performance go on. She does great. And of course, she's still thinking about what happened the night before. However, she didn't let that stop her from putting on a good show, and I'm assuming getting the funding she needed to save this studio. And that's literally the end of this episode 4. Now, here's where I was conflicted. Like, I didn't need to listen to the root song because I know that song very well, and it is talking about romantic, so I thought it was going to be that. But after finishing this episode and seeing, how it ended between Marcus and Angie, I'm just like, Mm, I don't understand. Like, because he did not have her. She probably had him, but he did not have her. It actually wasn't a true loving relationship. It was just a lustful relationship. And unfortunately, Angie convinced herself that it was more than that, even though deep down she knew it wasn't. Because when they were pillow talking, and she was saying how she feel it was unhealthy. That was her trying to trust her gut, but he said two words and she just threw whatever feels she had out the window. Like, all right, yeah, babe. Then after watching it a second time, and then I guess I missed, I don't know, but when the friend Trina was like, I got you, it clicked the second time watching it that this isn't a support system between a romantic relationship. It's like that I got you support system from a friendship relationship. At least this is what I got from it. If you got something else from it, please let me know. Let's have a discussion in the comments below. But that you got me, meaning that no matter what, I will have your back, no matter what is going on out there. Even if you feel like I don't have your back, just know that I will always got you. Again, in the song, it was more focused on the romantic, but I really love this approach that they took to the song and made it more about a friendship. A friendship. It was definitely refreshing because we already got those romantic tropes in the other previous episodes, and I'm thankful it wasn't gun related as well. So this was refreshing to see, and I think we do need to see more on us having each other when it comes to friendships. Like we always have that ride or die theme for romantic relationships, and it's always toxic, but we never see like a ride or die friendship. At least I haven't really truly seen it in this form. So yeah, I loved it, and I think this was really cute to see. And the main lesson, if I didn't already say it, it would be to just trust yourself. Like no matter how good the dick is, take off those rose colored lenses and trust yourself and trust what yourself is telling you. That's probably like the main lesson out of almost all these episodes. But for this one, it stood out. It stood out because again, we had the scene where she's kind of sharing her feels with him, and he basically tells her to ignore it. What she's feeling is not okay. What I'm telling you is what is true, and you should focus on that, not what you feel. And if you ever in a situation where the other person is telling you that, that is literally the biggest fucking red flag for life. Like run away, whether that's romantic, whether it's just life guidance, whether it's a friendship, run the fuck away. If anybody is teaching you to not trust yourself, run away. They are trying to manipulate you for whatever fucking reason. And in this case, he was just trying to add my good girl to the roster and add his branding on her, which is crazy. Like this last episode was a little quirky. My favorite thing about it was just how Trina stayed stood 10 toes down for my girl Angie, and again just having that support from a friend. I love that. But I feel like I kind of dropped some lessons throughout sharing this fourth episode. And honestly, I feel like we got the gist of this. Like, again, rest in peace to Irv Gotti. I feel like this was super original. This was my first time personally watching something that was based off like a song and set up as an anthology. And I just thought it was pretty genius. I definitely finished the entire first season. Apparently, there are 3 seasons, but only one season is currently on Tubi. I'm saying all this to say the next episode, I'm actually not going to finish the last 3 episodes because there's only 7 for the first season. They are a lot longer. It's going to be like 4 hours just watching that. And I kind of want to go over another movie for the next one. So for the next podcast episode, we are going to be diving into Tu Wong Fu. I can't remember. I just know it's about like drag queens and stuff. And I just feel like it may be aligned with Pride, and it's only right. And I remember watching it as a kid and loving it, but I don't remember exactly what happened. So I'm excited to explore this again. If you've made it this far, that means you kind of fuck with your girl. So please subscribe, share this podcast episode with a friend. And I thank you for joining me, and I will see y'all next week.